Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Haan. I'm going to time myself just to make sure I stick to 9 minutes. I am from London, Ontario. Don't let my accent fool you. Very happy to be here today. Just to let you know beforehand, you're likely to be disappointed with my talk. I have only begun to look at program evaluation and the relationship that exists with administrative data. So there's clearly a lot of work to be done. And I, for one, was particularly excited and encouraged by Martha's presentation this morning. And I hope to, as part of one of the purposes of my presentation, is demonstrate why what they're doing is so incredibly important. Before I start, we keep throwing around this term, administrative data, and I thought it might be useful to just pause for a second and actually define the term, because we don't, it's not necessarily obvious what administrative data means. So just very quickly, I would think of administrative data as any data that are collected for the purposes of administering or supervising a program. Now that in itself is rather vague, but it might be more useful to think about administrative data as any data that were not collected primarily for research purposes. So what that means is that there's a lot of work that needs to go on behind the scenes before we can start to produce meaningful results. I have some examples here. Some of them you probably heard of: physician billing database, the Medicare Client Registry, Driver's License Registry, Social Insurance Registry. And the ones that I'm going to be using today: landing records, iCare, which I will not be using today, and IMDb. The IMDb is the landing records of all immigrants to Canada linked to their T1 tax filer information. It's an incredibly useful and important data set, because what it does is it allows us to track individuals over time, the same individuals over time. So I'm using these data, and I'm going to use Ottawa as a test case to begin to delve into a discussion of what is possible with these files and what's not possible with these files. So I'm using Ottawa in part because Hindia, who's in the back corner, allowed me to use these data for the presentation today, and I thank her for that. It's very generous. Ottawa is a fairly safe example to use. Nobody feels sorry for Ottawa not being able to recruit or retain immigrants. Nobody's worried about socioeconomic outcomes in Ottawa. So in many ways, Ottawa is a really good, innocuous example of what we can do with these administrative files. Okay, so look at the diversity of immigrants that come to Ottawa. Here are, for 3 landing cohorts, the top 10 source countries. Notice at the bottom of each of these cohorts is an other category. Each time we have more than half or more than half of all immigrants to the city coming from destinations other than the top 10 source countries. So talk about diversity. Immigration is fueling Ottawa's diversity in a way that we probably would see in very few other cities, even Toronto. So that's good. Is Ottawa doing a good job at recruiting a diverse array of immigrants? I would say yes. So if Ottawa's immigration program is being evaluated in terms of diversity, we could say they're doing a good job. Similarly, we could say they're doing a really good job of stealing immigrants from other parts of Canada. Here is secondary migration to Ottawa from source city. So at the top, Ottawa is poaching 1,300 immigrants from 2004 to 2006 from Toronto. That goes down to 800 for the next cohort. And then we have 205. And this is all measured in 2012, the tax files, okay? So lots of people coming into Ottawa from other regions. So there's something about the Ottawa magnet that seems to be working very well, it appears. Further evidence of that can be seen from looking at the statistics of out-migration from Ottawa. So who leaves the place to go to other parts of Canada? Well, quite a few fewer people leave the city than those that come. So look at the bottom. You have 1,700 people for 2004 to 2006 have left Ottawa. That's compared to, and I'll jump back a slide here, 4,195 that have come to Ottawa. So this is a real success story, at least for Ottawa. The other parts of Canada may not be very happy about it, but Ottawa seems to be doing a good job. So we have some preliminary conclusions, and I would say they're very tentative. Ottawa's doing a good job at recruiting immigrants. It attracts a diverse array, and it gains nearly twice as many immigrants as it loses. It recruits from across Canada. So these are pretty good things. Ottawa's overall immigration program seems to be functioning very well. So let's start to poke some holes in this, okay? Yes, Ottawa is doing a good job, but you can compare Ottawa to cities in Canada that are approximately the same size, and what you see is that there are cities that are actually doing better. Look at Edmonton, Calgary, even look at Winnipeg. The retention rates, they're higher than Ottawa's. So maybe you could start to take a step back and say, well, maybe there's still room for improvement in Ottawa. Sorry for all the numbers. I'm hitting you with walls of numbers here. This is a plot of individual earnings over time by year. So in the bottom left corner of your slide, that 2012 data, that is the average median individual earnings for somebody that landed between 2004 and 2006, $24,000. So economic outcomes in Ottawa. I didn't put up the comparison figures for other cities, but economic outcomes in Ottawa, there may be room for improvement here. Furthermore, we don't know whether the people here are using any of the programs being offered by any SPO in Ottawa. So are the programs that we would be evaluating in Ottawa doing a good job? Well, we don't know. I can put a question mark now behind Ottawa is doing a good job because there's some reasons to believe that there might be room for improvement. And I'm not trying to slight Ottawa here. I picked Ottawa intentionally because it's a good example of a city that's probably not going to be at the top, probably won't be the top performer, probably won't be the bottom performer. It'll be somewhere in the middle. Retention rates, though they're improving, are lower than they are for some comparably sized cities. Median incomes don't look that great. It would be useful for me to compare them to other cities, but I don't have the time to do that here today. Ottawa's not at the top, they're not at the bottom, just like the retention statistics. Furthermore, and I'll bring this home again, we don't know whether the immigrants that are in Ottawa are actually using the services being provided. This is why I think iCare is so exciting, because we're actually going to have, maybe if we're allowed to use the data, CIC will have information on the type, CIC will have information on the types of services that are being utilized by immigrants. And they also have postal code information linked. So in terms of retention, this will be the first time that we'll actually be able to identify whether individual programs, using administrative data, whether individual programs actually have an effect on retention. Statisticians often talk about ecological correlations. In its simplest term, it's the idea that you have these megatrends happening up here, and the assumption that's often made, the assumption that's often made is that then translates down to the ground. So Ottawa receives X number of settlement dollars per year. Ottawa retains X number of immigrants per year. These two things must somehow be working together, and we can conclude that Ottawa is doing a good job with its settlement programs. This is kind of what we've been able to do so far. Introduction of iCare was going to change that quite a bit. So the results that I showed you today really show, I think, program evaluation with admin data in its infancy, and it shows you what can be done and what could be done and perhaps should be done and what's available now. We don't yet have really, I didn't show much on some of the other aspects that really seem to matter: recruitment, retention, settlement, etc. My timer's done. So I think the future of administrative data probably will come from the presentation that Martha made this morning. It's the idea that we know what we have, we know what we need, and we know what we can do next. Thank you.